Well, hello, Mysterium, and thanks for having us. My name is Ryan Warzecha, known as greydragon in the community, and I am the head of developer relations for Cyan Ventures. And I wanted to just introduce you today to the team that is behind Area Man Lives. The team is Numinous. Today we have Amy and Ryan Green with us, and I'll let them do some introductions for you. But let me say a little bit about Cyan Ventures first. Cyan Ventures was this idea that Rand had that we as developers wanted to start helping out other developers. And so a couple of years back now, we started looking at projects that we could kind of bring on board to just help them get across the line. We first started with Zed, and that was published a year and a half ago, I believe now. And then we helped acquire Unwritten, and we have lots of plans for that. That's the pen and paper game that is in the Myst universe. And so then we had started talking to the great team at Numinous, and we really we love what they've done, and they are such an amazing team. They have just so much behind them, that so many great ideas. And so we started talking to them like, what can we do together? How can we work together? And that is what kind of coalesced into Area Man Lives. And so Ryan and Amy, please introduce yourself.
Great.
Perfect. I'm Amy
Hi.
Green.
I'm Ryan
That's
Green.
Ryan.
We're married.
We are married. It means working together is the worst. Until we release something, and then working together is the best.
But it's creative genius.
Because we did it together, so it's even better. Goodness.
I started Numinous Games with Josh Larson in 2012, and we just met each other and wanted to work together, and what that led to a project called That Dragon Cancer, which is about cancer and loss, and it's poetic and beautiful and not funny. Most people that know us know that we're just really we like to consider ourselves funny people, and want to do creative, funny things that are still meaningful. And that's really the heart of what we want to do at Numinous is, we want to, bring players to the edge of the unknown and ask them what they think, and inspire those feelings of awe and reflection and thinking about existence and all of that. But what Untethered was a project that came soon after we released That Dragon Cancer. And so yeah, we've been working on it for a while now.
Yeah, and That Dragon Cancer was this autobiographical video game about our son who had cancer and his eventual death to cancer. So the origins of Area Man Lives kind of came in like, okay, what next? Like, we've done this really heavy thing. Can we do something really, really different? And so this was our response to, what do we do that's really, really different after making That Dragon Cancer?
Mm-hmm. Can you guys tell me a little bit more about your team? I mean, I know there's Josh, but who else is a part of your team, and how did they come into place? And Ryan, maybe mention too, how long have you been in the industry? How have you worked in other games before and stuff like that? And what made you decide to even start your own company? I mean, that's a big, venture in itself. So
yeah, sure. Well, I've been a programmer since '97, doing web pages and stuff like that, and wanted to be a filmmaker. And Amy and I had a short stint doing video production. We realized very quickly that we are not wedding videographers. We just couldn't handle the pressure of that.
It was hot a lot of the time. It's like people get married in the summer, so I think
we made the mistake of wearing matching polos as well.
There was so much bad about that, but anyway. Okay, so we're video game developers because we failed at being wedding videographers.
But we did also do the occasional corporate video, so we know how to create cringy situations.
Okay, but the team
with executives.
But the team.
The team. So the team came because I met Josh online, and we fast friendship, and we're like, oh, we need to work together. And there are some other people that came along to work with us. One is Mike Perrotto. Mike is the reason I got into video game development is because Mike and I met when we were in 8th grade, and I was like, hey, will you come over and look at my fort that I made? I have comics. And he's like, yes, that sounds awesome. And so we became friends, and we learned to program computers. And now that we program computers, we work together, and we've been friends for like 27 years. And so he works on the team with us. And then Brock Henderson also has worked on the project with us. We met through a mutual, we met through the Christian Game Developers Network conference.
Mm-hmm.
And he came on board to work on that Dragon Cancer.
And
then John.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have amazing. You gotta let me talk sometimes.
Fair.
Okay, so we have this amazing audio designer, John Hillman. He composes. He's a programmer. He's kind of our secret weapon. I think he made that Dragon Cancer what it was because he wrote all the emotional scoring that just like made you feel everything instead of just kind of like lurking oddly in very intense emotions. And then because Airy Man Lives all takes place in a radio station, we think of it as a radio drama, like his work in the sound design of this radio drama and all the sound effects and amazing things that are happening inside the radio station. We definitely see him as kind of a champion of our team right now.
Yeah, so we have an embarrassment of wealth and riches on our team on audio and sound design, and we really lean into that. And who else? Who are we missing? Jordan is one of our artists, and I don't know. We've
had a smaller team lately, so we kind of have shrunk up and are focusing a little bit to get it finished.
Now you mentioned CGC, I guess, right? The Christian Games Conference, or what? That's the first time you guys met Rand, is that correct? Like, I believe that's okay. Yeah,
we were at a conference, or we were at the summer conference, and he spoke, and his talk was amazing. I think he talked about agenda, and how easily when you come with an agenda, it's so evident to everybody that's watching. And so but when you come with story and authenticity, then that's really what attracts people. And so when he came and spoke to our group, I just felt like he was a wise sage coming in and talking to us about why we need to stay authentic and not just think about like the messages that we're trying to convey, but come from a place of honesty.
And as we got to know him, like, he's just such a believer in virtual reality and sees the potential for that to be this next big wave in games. And we really love virtual reality, and we get really excited when we talk about like what kind of experiences can you have in virtual reality that are totally different from the kinds of games you play like on other platforms. And so it's just, I think we both kind of found that we had this spark of energy about like really pushing the boundaries. Like, if everyone's going to make a crazy like fighting game, right? Everyone's going to want to explore space. Like, there's the obvious things that you want to do in virtual reality. And I think that Rand likes to think a little bit beyond that, and we like to think a little bit beyond
and fun fact, Untethered, which is what Area Man Lives started as a space game. Actually, that was why Brock really wanted to work on it. We tricked our whole team into working on it because we pitched a space game. We got it funded as a space game, and then last minute I was like, what if we don't do that? Make a quirky Oregon radio station, because Amy happened to live in Oregon for a few
So. I love it. And so, before we get on to Area Man Lives even more, I do want to let you guys tell me a little bit more about Numinous. I know that, Area Man Lives is not the only project you're kind of working on right now. I know that there's some other things that really mean a lot to you right now. So go ahead and talk about some of that stuff.
So we like to say at Numinous, we're on a search for the heart of interaction, of human interaction, right? Like, we want to create meaningful connection between us as creatives and players, and really nurture relationship. And so we've had a few different opportunities to do that. First is that Dragon Cancer, which is, a meaningful story of us sharing our heart. And it's been amazing to see how we connected with people and how immediately they want to share their hearts. And so because of that Dragon Cancer, we had somebody reach out to us at a company called Avexis and ask if we wanted to do more work in the space of creating an experience for people with neuroendocrine cancer. And so what we ended up creating was something called Galaxies of Hope, which again was like a poetic, meditative, beautiful app that allowed you to like explore these allegorical landscapes and hear interviews from patients and caregivers and physicians. And when that executive moved on to another company, he asked us if we wanted to serve children in the spinal muscular atrophy community. And spinal muscular atrophy is a very serious disease that is actually the #1 genetic killer of children. It's a disease where it causes motor neuron death, and then the muscles atrophy, and it's very aggressive. Anyway, in that space, you know, video games are a place in that community that's a point of connection, and we want to be about like how can we highlight the creativity of these kids? How can we nurture their relationships? How can we draw people together, especially in a COVID world, right? Where like we're all getting a taste of what it means to be isolated. And, you know, a lot of these families every year anyway have to sequester themselves because of flu season. And so, you know, these technological connections are really important. And so for us, we really want to design games that everybody can play. And so accessibility has become more of a more important to us, and it's something that we believe as Numinous we can do to serve the gaming community.
And we've seen a lot of games where, you know, you make this amazing game for like what you see as like kind of the core player, right. And then after the fact you go and try to make it accessible for people who aren't that core player. And we felt like, man, we have an opportunity here to make a video game for the person who's like the furthest from the core player as you can get, and let's make something just for them that they love, but that everyone will find fun, so they have this way to connect. Because that was something for us with our son Joel. He had disabilities after his cancer treatments and just things that were challenging for him. He never spoke more than a handful of words. We couldn't really connect with him the way we wanted to.
He was hard of hearing.
So we just learned what this disability world was like. And suddenly we were like, man, if we can create a way for these kids to connect to their peers better and to their parents better, if they can play with their family. So through the Playability Initiative, we're designing a one-button game so that some of these kids who can still only control a finger and just move it this much have a game that they can play. And the more we watch how these kids play through eye tracking or other systems, we go, man, these are the kids we should all be making games for. Like, we love games, but if I want to, I can get out and go kick a ball and go run around and go hike a mountain. Like, if this is what they can do, let's make it great for them. So that's what we've been about in the Playability Initiative. We are so excited about it because it serves a community of kids that we're really passionate about.
And with the Playability Initiative, you have a few partners, right? I don't remember all of them, but feel free to talk about them now.
Oh yeah, and so you know, this is all being made possible by Avexis, who's our financial sponsor of this initiative, right? But we're also partnering up with Able Gamers, and what Able Gamers is about is just making sure everybody can play, and so they connect gamers with adaptive technology and accessible technology. And you see Steve Spahn, who's the COO of Able Gamers, just recently announced a fundraiser with help from Ryan Reynolds. So that was a really cool thing. So if you look up Able Gamers, you can see all what they're about. And then also Andy Robertson, who's a journalist in the UK and he writes, he's written a book about, he really like focuses on family gaming and really creating a bridge where, you know, parents and kids have a positive relationship with games and encourage each other. And so he's written a book called Taming Gaming. Along with that, he created a family video game database. And so we approached him and said, hey, Andy, this looks great. Do you think you could also expand your accessibility search features? So we really want to be about like, hey, you know, there's plenty of games that are accessible, right? And sometimes it's just a matter of knowing how to make them accessible or how to play them. And so if we could create a trove of information that he could help us do that. So yeah. It's kind of a three-pronged, you know, initiative, but yeah, we're excited about that. And that is, you know, we have a team that is working on that. Yep. And we're hopeful that we'll start to have even public playable prototypes by the fall. So.
And the reason I brought that all up is it's just, I wanted to make sure that our fan community gets to know you guys a little bit more. The thing is that Cyan fell in love with you guys as a team, and we love your heart, and that's why I just want them to see, why out of the blue are we going to do this quirky game, right? Well, it's not only the quirky game, it's because of the people behind it. And I think that's a lot of things that Ventures like tries to strive for, is work with people that we want to work with. Let's talk about then Area Man Lives. So Amy, can you tell us about this quirky game that was once a space game, but then became something totally
Yes.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh man, you guys, the space game was such a cool
It was going to
concept.
be really cool.
I might tell you about the space game next year. If you bring me back to Mysterium, I'm going to give you the whole plot of this space game that never was, and it'll be a funding pitch, and people can throw money at me. No, but Area Man Lives. In Area Man Lives, you live in this small coastal town in Oregon, and in any secluded small town.
It doesn't have a name even.
No, I didn't name it.
Which is like most places out there. There's like these small communities, but they don't really have a town.
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration for the town has a name, but that's a secret.
Oh.
But no, so anytime you live in like a small sequestered little town, things get weird. Like small towns draw weird people, I think. And so this is a very weird town. And you show up for your first day on the job at a radio station. You're the fill-in DJ. You're kind of trying to learn the ropes. So you're just in the studio by yourself, and sometimes over the intercom, you hear your producer talking to you, telling you what he thinks you should be doing, and it's going okay. You get to make announcements over the air. You get to talk to the producer because we use speech detection, and we can hear you talk to us. So it feels a little bit like playing an improv game, like if you were a nerd in high school, like we were nerds in high school,
Yes.
and your idea of a good time was not like putting on football equipment and bashing into each other, but like going and hanging out on the stage and playing pretend.
Yeah.
If you were an improv kid like us, you think that's really fun. So you talk in this game. The game hears you. The characters talk back to you. So you're just doing your job. You're recording radio commercials. You're talking to people over the air. You're taking phone calls. Mm-hmm. And suddenly a man calls in and tells you that he believes you're leading him on a mission, that he has a job he needs to do. And he's been listening to everything you say, and everything you say he sees as a clue as to like how to accomplish his mission. And he starts calling in and telling you that he really needs your help. So the game kind of unfolds as you try to figure out, who is this guy? Is he a threat to me or to the world? Is he, because there's a lot of weird people in this town, and should you help him? And if so, what could you possibly do inside this radio station that would help this area man on his very mysterious quest?
That is perfect. And let me say now, let's take some callers. Questions. So, one of the first questions we had here is, what kind of hardware will Area Man Lives need? Now, I know that, you're doing accessibility for the other games and stuff like that, but what kind of hardware will they need if they want to play Area Man Lives? So.
Sure. So for Area Man Lives, we're going to release on the Quest and also on PC VR. And so it will primarily just be the touch controllers or in the headset. And then also we have voice detection. So there are ways that you can speak to it. But to the accessibility kind of, maybe this was an accessibility question as well. We're starting to look at ways that we can make sure that, that Area Man Lives is accessible. And so we're always keeping in mind the fact that not everybody has the freedom to walk around and crouch and do really, high energy things. And so the game really isn't about that. This isn't like a Beat Saber or something like that. And so we're thinking of ways that we can make sure that we keep this as accessible as possible. And then also on our playability initiative side, the one button game that we're creating, it will just be one button, one switch to play the game. And so we're taking on the design challenge of making a really interactive and fun and creative game that only requires one button to play.
And Katie Bear asks, what has Cyan or Rand brought to Area Man Lives, and how has it changed or improved because of that? And I think one of the things you can talk about is your design session that you guys had out in there. Feel free to go into it.
We come from, like Amy said, from a really theatrical background. And so a lot of what we create is more theatrical than game. And so, part of the reboot of Untethered was really honing in on, the mystery and the puzzling of what we're creating.
Yes. We have a tendency to make experiences sometimes. In fact, in our logo, or in like anytime we say Numinous Games, there's quotes around it. So I always say it's Numinous Games because it's always questionable whether what we make will be a game or just like some weird thought experiment that ended up on a video game platform.
Yeah.
But we just knew we had this chance with Rand to like create a game. So we're like, Rand, like help us design a pretty cool puzzle because right now it's a little puzzle light. So we feel like he ups the puzzle ability of the game and we're really excited about it. And we just had the most fun ever. Like he came out for a weekend. We discussed the game. We brainstormed all kinds of crazy things with him. And
ate good food, had really deep conversations
and it just
about life and existence.
It felt like a dream moment as a game developer to be like, oh, like all the time now. Like I'm such a name dropper. I'm a bad name dropper, but like my friends aren't that into video games. Like all my like 30-something mom friends aren't going to be like, oh, you make games? That's so cool. But I'm like, hey, have you heard of Myst? And they're like, I have heard of Myst. I'm like, oh, we're just making a game with those guys. And that's just like, I don't know. It just made me seem cooler to my friends. No, but we've loved working with the Cyan team, with Ryan. Like I think they make us think about things in new ways, ask us questions that are really thought-provoking, push us to polish a little harder. And I just think the game's going to be so much better. And then there's just the Cyan community that like, we have this alternate reality game that's like starting to develop slowly alongside of Area Man Lives. And through that, I'm just starting to get a glimpse into some of the Cyan super fans, and I love those guys. Like, I just want to go to dinner with all the Cyan super fans because just watching how they are willing to like engage and play along with everything happening in the alternate
and we're finding
reality game.
Like other improv theater kids, nerds that we're connecting and they're playing along, and so
fun. So I'm almost.
Why don't we talk a little bit about the ARG? What has been the most exciting thing so far with the ARG? We have some other questions here too, but
I'm always excited about what we're doing next. Probably one of the really fun things, and we'll have a video coming out soon, so you can get a little bigger glimpse into it. Was we had some characters in the Area Man Lives world that you can follow on Twitter and see what's happening. There was an office romance that went bad. I won't reveal too much, but when it went bad, the girl in the relationship decided she needed to dispose of all of her memories from the relationship, and she did that at PAX. So she packed everything from their relationship into a vintage suitcase and hid it at PAX. And then we kind of let the alternate reality game take over at PAX. We left clues, and not everyone like paid attention to them, but we had 6 or 7 people who caught into the clues and went on a search around PAX and found this suitcase, and in it, the love interest had asked Alice, I'm giving away names. I'm giving away too much. Had asked Alice.
KQBRradio.com.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Where do you want them to go to if they want to kind of get into this?
Okay, what they need to know right now, the most important, I'll go back to this story, but what they need to know right now is that KQBRradio.com is hiring. So I'm pretty excited about the hiring process. It's slow. It's been such a slow process. Like
large corporations are.
They move so slow.
They move so slow.
But what that means is there's still time to apply. It's not too late. But she gave away the suitcase. In it was an invitation from her love interest to join her for ice cream. And the person at PAX who found the suitcase showed up at the ice cream parlor and broke the man's heart. Let him know that Alice was never coming. She was through with him forever. It was a beautiful moment. It was captured on film.
I happened to be recording right when the person walked up. It was wonderful. Like any of those times where you like put something out and then somebody picks it up and they play along. That's what's exciting about what we want to do.
So in the next 5, 6, 7 months, we'll have a lot more of those kinds of things. Some of COVID, unfortunately, shifted a little bit of the alternate reality game, but I think that's what's really fun about an alternate reality game is you don't get to control it. Like you set something in motion and the people who choose to play along change what's going to happen. And I think also worldwide pandemics change what's going to happen. And then we've got to play along back. So we're into the improv analogy. So that's been a really fun part of this experience too.
We have time for about 2 more questions. So I'll go with the first one. And that is Tree Hugger Hannah asks, how did you choose the title Area Man Lives?
I wanted to call it Area Man Dies, but nobody liked that. They thought it was too dark.
Because we thought it was so depressing. Yeah.
There are many, many ways that things can go very wrong in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So many ways they can go wrong. And the ways that they can go wrong are hilarious and weird. And they remind us of like all the like Florida Man articles you see from The Onion, or the Area Man Lives articles from The Onion. Like they just remind us of those kind of like stupid deaths that happen. And so it just felt like a fitting title to like take a situation where things can go wrong so many ways and you have to figure out the one way to make it go right.
And Brian asks, when does Area Man Lives plan to come out? And I mean, I can feel free to answer here. Because of COVID, there's been some slippage there, and we just want it to be good too. I know that is something on your guys' plate. And so we're looking at, Q1, Q2 next year, basically, is where we're looking right now. So
I think that's something that's been really cool with working with Cyan, is that in the past, sometimes you have a project that you believe in and you're so excited about, and you hit such a hard deadline that you feel like you have to release it, whether it feels quite ready or not. Mm-hmm. And we have felt a lot of freedom to like really make sure that this is good. And we like that Cyan like believes in that too, that we'd rather get it right than get it out earlier. So, so it's been an awesome team to work with in that regard, because sometimes you don't get that flexibility.
And so, there's always say that there's the first 90% and the last 90%. We're in the last 90% because it's the polished part, and it's the part where we have all the systems in place and we have all the code in place, and now we're making sure that the timing is good and that the humor is good and that the jokes really sing. And so that's the part that we're in right now.
And I'm trying to, I don't have any other questions right now, but let me ask you, what is something that you want to, I don't want to give too much away, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to give too much away. That is, but because Numinous is all about interaction, about connecting and the heart, how does this game do that? Is there a way you can say that without?
I can, and it's tiptoeing on the line. You'll see Ryan's eyes get alarmed when I say too much.
This,
that's my cue. Except it'll be down on my leg and it'll be like, stop it, because that's just how we work. So there were a lot of things that happened when we were making that Dragon Cancer. Certainly, like when we began making that game, we were so passionate about it, and Joel was alive, and we were seeing all these amazing things happen and all these little miracles, and we just thought, we're telling his story because his story is amazing. And after he died, making the game was challenging in some ways because my reason for telling it shifted, that I thought I was telling it to share this incredible story we were witnessing, and it changed into just this memorial of his life. And there were moments where I would stop and go, is this a story I want to tell? Is this a story we should be telling? Are we still on the right track? And as we were making that game, we just have these little moments where something totally random would happen that just perfectly connected with our game. And we would just feel seen. And we would feel like, oh, we're absolutely supposed to be making this game. Like an example of that is we have a game where when Joel's doing radiation, it's inside that Dragon Cancer, he's playing on this carousel. And in my mind in creating it, he always loved to go under anesthesia. We never understood why. He would run to go to the anesthesia room, even if he was like sick and miserable and on steroids and angry and butting his head against me. But when it was time for anesthesia, he'd get so excited. So I always wondered, like, is there something going on beyond this plane of existence that we understand, where he's like doing something amazing while he's under anesthesia? So when we made the carousel, I was like, what if this has always been, what if whatever we could choose to create for him in this moment gets to be outside of time what he has always been doing in that moment, like, which is like a weird, mystical, bizarre thing, but I don't know. It was a thought I had. And we're making the game. We're worried if we should be making it. And Ryan's sister called him up one day crying on the phone and said, I just had a dream about Joel. This was after he died. And I looked out the window and there were all these clouds. And then I saw descending from the clouds a carousel. And Joel was on this carousel playing. And for us, it was just this like, whoa,
she didn't know,
like moment. She didn't know we were making this scene with the carousel. I'd had this thought that I thought was maybe like an unacceptable thought, which is like, what if God lets it be that whatever we make in this game for Joel is real because we chose to make it? And then she has this dream and we just felt seen and we felt connected to, and we felt like we're on the right track. And there were 4 or 5 or 6 moments like that in making that Dragon Cancer, which I won't go into all the details.
Because to us, they're meaningful, but to
To
other
everyone
people-
else, it's just random. Someone
Yeah.
had a dream, and okay, and that's a coincidence.
Sure.
And we thought about how all the moments in our lives that we've felt really like we tapped into something could all be explained away. They all feel like coincidences. And so Area Man Lives really tries to like talk about what those moments feel like in our lives,
Right.
where we suddenly feel like a connection we can't explain.
And to everybody else, it just seems kind of silly.
Kind of
but-
silly.
And let me just butt in here. We've had some of those Area Man Lives connections happen while
yeah.
we've been making this game.
All
And
the time.
it's pretty crazy, like raccoons or whatever, right? Like it's
Yeah. It always feels like as soon as we write some scene in the game, something happens in our lives that's the exact same to the scene, where like you almost don't even want to write anything bad anymore. You're like, and then they win $1 million. Like, because you're tired of writing all the scary stuff, and then something weird happens. You're like, that's exactly like my game. Our latest was that this week, some good friends of ours had a late in life baby. That was like totally a surprise. And they just had their baby, and we just found out her name was Penelope. And in the course of creating this game, we've commissioned several songs. And this one song we gave to
Jill Soapy.
Jill Sobule. And we had a concept for what we needed the song to be about. And she came back with it, and she told us the name is Penelope. And so when our friends just had this baby and named it Penelope, I'm like, I commissioned a song for you. Hold on, let me go get it. So that was my latest Area Man Lives moment.
Yeah.
So.
Rand asked one last question. I think this is a good fitting way to end. Why is Numinous called Numinous? What made you pick that name?
Yeah, right. So it's a strange name.
It's hard to spell.
Yes, it is hard to spell. It how best to explain this? C.S. Lewis wrote something about this idea of numinous, but he did it through way of a story. I'm pretty sure. If I recollect this story correctly, it's this idea that if you were to
if you were in a room,
if you're in a room
and there were two doors,
and they said behind one door is a tiger, and you believed it, that would create a certain fear in you that you would understand, right? Like, there's a wild beast on the other side of the door. I believe that, right? If I told you the other door, there's a ghost behind it, and you believed it, what difference would that create in you of fear, of contemplating the eternal, of the vastness of the universe, right? And like your place in it, right? So like that idea of numinous, of awe, the awe that you experience when you come up against the other, right? That is the space that we like to dwell in, right? Because we're always thinking about that, like these are the things that we can't put words to. We try to write poetry and make music and create virtual worlds and try to explain, eternity, and we just can't, and we try to put words and concepts around it and dogmas and theologies around it, but we can't contain it. So it's that wildness. There's
the awe and fear of something spiritual that's a little bit beyond what you can explain or understand, and like you could try to believe in it, but you don't know. And I think that's what I love about faith, if I'm just being blunt, is that there's an aspect of it that we just don't know. Like, I get so bored with the idea of like a faith that is just prescribed and we understand it, we figured it out. That's boring. But the stuff we can't know, that we're not sure, that maybe I'm totally wrong about how it works, that's like the fearful, exciting, awe-filled stuff. And I think we want to create worlds that reflect that.
Chronicles of Narnia, like C.S. Lewis in Chronicles of Narnia, when they talk about Aslan, which is this lion that created Narnia. One of the girls in the book says, like, but is he safe? Like, this lion that they're talking about, is he safe? And I believe the beaver, Mr. Beaver, maybe says.
I don't remember who said.
I'm gonna butcher this. You guys are gonna like.
We're gonna get like hate mail. That'll be fun.
But it's like, no, he's not tame. He's not safe, but he's good.
Yeah.
And so, in that sense of like, when we face the unknown, when we face the supernatural, the other, there's this like, we want safety, but we know we don't get safety. But is there goodness there?
Can there be some delight in fear? Like, okay, my daughter, when she was 2 or 3. She loved to be afraid of clowns. Like, she loved to be afraid of clowns. So she was 2 or 3 and she'd see a clown and she'd be like, oh, scary. And then laugh and go, scary clown. Like, so it was like this thing where it was like a fear that delighted her. And like, that's about as much as I can handle fear, is something totally unknown and a little intimidating and weird and scary, but fun. So we'll never make horror games, but I think there's some aspect of that in Numinous too.
Yeah. You want the awe to be not safe, but good.
Sounds
so
great.
The opposite of a clown, actually. So
Yes,
never
yeah.
mind. A clown.
Well, thank you guys for being on this. Let me ask you last few things. If people want to follow you, if they want to follow the company, how do they get a hold of you? Twitter handles, whatever you want to say here.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. On Twitter, Numinous_Games is one way. On Twitter, I'm Ryan Green 8. You're Amy Noel Green.
I'm Amy Noel Green everywhere. I'm Amy
Yeah,
Noel Green on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. I write
She's a
about
3-name big deal.
Well, it's just because Amy Green is the most generic name in the world. Name in the world. So you got to add something. So I'm Amy Noel Green. You can follow me. I write about game design and the weird numinous things. I just write about a lot of things. Area Man Lives has its own Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do a lot on that.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe we will.
And
We will.
NuminousGames.com, you can find our stuff. But if you're interested in our accessibility stuff, and if accessibility matters to you, we'd love to hear from you, because we want to be a catalyst for designers and members of the disabled community to like come together and create games that everybody can play and that draw people together.
And so there's a Facebook group that's called the Playability Initiative. So if you search on Facebook for Playability Initiative, if you join that Facebook group, we're actually looking to collaborate with some people and get ideas and really involve other people in that design process. And then if you are at all interested in joining us in the wild journey of Area Man Lives, I think the best place to start for that is kqbrradio.com. You'll just have
Also,
to explore
take a look
around
at
in
that
there.
press release from last year.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, well, I think that is it. Thank you guys again for taking this time to be a part of this panel. I know that next year we hope to have a lot more for them and to, talk about the ARG and talk about all the kind of fun things that we had planned and what happened and all that fun stuff. So thank you again, Mysterium committee and the fans for being here and watching this. And we hope to tell you more about Area Man Lives soon.
Awesome. Thank you.